Hey everybody, how are you all doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to talk to you guys about The Legend of Zelda, the 35th anniversary celebration, and how it all may or may not relate to E3. Now, of course, last week I also made a video discussing The Legend of Zelda and E3 and some of this stuff, because E3 is basically right around the corner. Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is the biggest game that we currently know Nintendo is developing. There are plenty of reasons to believe that that game could release this year, and so it definitely seems like with E3 coming that they're probably going to focus heavily on the Legend of Zelda franchise and specifically Breath of the Wild 2. I discussed that in that video. It was a lot of fun to break down. There's a lot of exciting possibilities there. But now that we're even closer, we're actually in the month of May, just a few weeks away from E3, there's starting to get some other conversations out there, and maybe some people who seem to potentially be in the know, stating that we might even see Zelda 35th anniversary stuff happen before E3. Of course, before we dive too much deeper into the Zelda anniversary E3 topic, I do always like to remind you guys that I am always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. I'm hoping to cross 17,000 subscribers before the end of 2021. I upload several videos every single week. I cover all things Nintendo, I cover a lot of Metroid, I cover all things gaming, so as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then hopefully you will consider subscribing to the channel. Now, around 2 weeks ago, I also discussed the possibilities of what Nintendo might do for us before E3, and most of the focus of that conversation was about the possibilities of a Nintendo Direct maybe happening between April and E3 in June, but I also very much did discuss the possibility of news about The Legend of Zelda, and maybe having a 35th anniversary celebration sort of direct presentation happen before E3. I've mostly been kind of thinking that if they're going to do anything for that this year, that doing it at E3 might make the most sense. It's a month before Skyward Sword HD comes out, so they get to spend some time on that. They can hopefully show us and tell us more about Breath of the Wild 2, maybe confirm that it is going to be coming out this year, or confirm it for next year if that's the case. And then if there are any other surprise products or game releases, collections of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and those things, that they would also discuss that at E3. But now, a leaker who's been getting a lot of traction the last couple of months, whose name is Samus Hunter on Twitter, has started to give us more of an indication that we could see 35th anniversary stuff happen this month, in the month of May, before E3. Now, a couple of things to note is that Samus Hunter seems to have a pretty darned good track record. So that's what's made a lot of what they've been discussing very exciting, and why a lot of people have been paying attention to it. Well, a fair amount of people. It's not getting crazy traction, but it is certainly getting some traction. And as I've kind of followed and seen what's going on over the past few weeks, I've really started to realize that there could potentially be something to this. There have been some YouTube channels that have been covering what Samus Hunter has been saying, and in fact, two of them who I am very familiar with, and one I'm even very close to, have spent a lot of time discussing and breaking down Samus Hunter stuff over the past, I would say, maybe month or so. Nintendo Prime, and then of course Andre's Restart. Those two channels, if you guys are not familiar with them for some crazy reason, you definitely should be. And I have to give them credit because, like I said, the last maybe 3-4 weeks or so, they've both spent a lot of time discussing the Samus Hunter stuff and kind of breaking it down. So you guys should definitely go and check out some of their more recent videos from the prior weeks where they've discussed some of the same stuff as well. Now, the main tweet from Samus Hunter that really kind of sparked this conversation for me, and this current conversation about Zelda 35th anniversary in May and all these things, is this tweet right here from just a few days ago, where he or she says, "Starting this month, we are going to see more news on the Zelda series. It will likely be an appetizer before the main course at E3, but we are entering the Zelda 35th anniversary." Obviously, like I said, the main implication there is that Zelda 35th anniversary stuff could be happening both before E3 in the month of May, as well as at E3, which again falls right in line with what I discussed in that video about a Nintendo Direct, where I did spend a couple of minutes talking about the 35th anniversary stuff, saying, hey, that could happen before E3, after E3, during E3, or at all of the above. And what Samus Hunter is saying here, and what seems to potentially know behind the scenes, is that that could be what's happening. Looking a little bit further into something that Samus Hunter said many weeks ago in the middle of April, where they kind of further hinted at some of that stuff before this month's tweet, Here is the other thing that they said at that time. Less than 2 months until E3 2021. Last week they told me that Nintendo has big plans in store for this year, but COVID is making things difficult to organize. Unfortunately, due to the number of partners, I cannot confirm whether all plans will come to fruition. We will know more on May 6th. Now, Samus Hunter made that tweet on April 17th, as you can see here, and today, the day that this video is going live, is May 5th, which is the day before a lot of this information, according to this tweet, might actually start to get out, and potentially on May 6th, which is going to be a Thursday of this week, we will be learning more from Nintendo about what their plans are for E3, and if they are doing anything before E3, like a Direct or an anniversary celebration, that would be the day, Thursday, May 6th, that Nintendo tells us. The only other last thing I want to remind you guys of, and I actually covered this in one of my recent videos here, is this other tweet that they added in that thread where they said, but I have to say something extra, the train will make at least one more stop before reaching the end. And that was the thing that I discussed on a recent video, how a lot of people took that as a potential sort of confirmation or leak about maybe a Spirit Tracks re-release or a remaster or a remake is going to come, because that's the one Zelda game about a train, and this tweet from Samus Hunter references the word train. Now, a lot of cryptic tweets that Samus Hunter seems to have made in that kind of style have come true in different ways, so I think that's maybe why people jumped on that. I personally am not yet ready to believe that exact thing. I don't know that that one tweet is saying Spirit Tracks specifically is coming, but I do want to again remind you guys that this person does have a pretty good track record, so regardless of what any of it means, there is a good chance that a lot of this is true, and it is very exciting, and it even builds off a lot of what I told you guys in the last couple of weeks in some of my videos. Now, of course, just like with any leaker or any person that ever claims to have insider behind-the-scenes info, we have to not forget that fact as we hear what they have to say, as we read their tweets or articles that are made about it, or hello, even watch YouTube videos that might be about some of that information. We never really know anything until it's fact, until Nintendo or any game company confirms it. We are in the era where a lot of leaks and claims about behind-the-scenes info does seem to be true. And I have definitely heard things before that sounded crazy, that turned out to be true. And I even know some things now that I've heard that could be real, could be not real, but I still don't even know if any of those things will ever be proven true. So it's just good to remind ourselves about this. I mean, again, Samus Hunter here has a great track record, and so props to them, and it's good for us to know that as we look into their info. But hey, you never really know until Nintendo tells us what's actually happening. But with that disclaimer out of the way, I just have to say how really exciting this all is, because it just makes sense with what I've been thinking, what I've been predicting, what I laid out to you guys in those recent videos. Obviously, it's pretty great for me to see that this stuff is coming out now through a different source publicly. I really think that doing this is the smart move by Nintendo. I said this many weeks ago that this year's E3 could potentially be Nintendo's to win. This is a time where Nintendo could take advantage of the situation and the return to E3 and the fact that they've already been treating E3 like a digital kind of event for many years anyway. And this could be the time where they really just come out guns blazing. I mean, 2020 was a unique, weird, slow year for Nintendo and the industry because of the pandemic. Now things are starting to get back to normal. E3 is returning after taking a year off. Nintendo is already very adept at digital presentations and Nintendo Direct formats. And there's a lot of mystery about their 2021 lineup and what they might be doing. I mean, even if you're talking about the Switch Pro hardware rumor, I mean, they could talk about new hardware, they could talk about Breath of the Wild 2. I have a very strong belief that Metroid could be playing a part, Bayonetta 3 might be discussed, other new games that we don't know about. There's rumors about Donkey Kong, there's rumors about Mario Kart. I mean, it's crazy. New Smash Brothers characters reveals. If Nintendo really wants to make a stamp this year, they're going to kill it at E3, and obviously focusing on Zelda is one of the main #1 things they could and probably will do. As I've laid out to you, and as Samus Hunter is continuing to lay out to you here, with the potential leaks and info that they seem to maybe know behind the scenes. And this is also why I think Nintendo will want to, you know, quote-unquote wet our whistle, so to speak, by giving us some sort of thing between now and E3. Obviously, the gap is closing, right? When I first laid that theory out, that was about 2 weeks ago. There was close to 2 months of leeway for them to do so. Now here we are, just over a month to go, and so there is less time for them to feasibly fit a brand new big presentation thing out here in May, and then just in the second week of June have their E3 show. But I still think it's possible. Samus Hunter's tweets seem to allude to that same thing happening. Why wouldn't Nintendo give us the Zelda kind of anniversary stuff and say, hey, Breath of the Wild 2 is this, and it's coming out at this time, and here's more info on Skyward Sword HD, and here we're also announcing the Wind Waker Twilight Princess thing, you know, these things that we always bring up. And then at E3, spend time at the Treehouse showing us new trailers and new gameplay and really blowing the doors open on a lot of this Zelda stuff. It just makes way too much sense. It's obviously not a guarantee, okay, so we don't want to set ourselves up too much for disappointment. I know that the stuff from Samus Hunter is exciting, and the stuff that I laid out in my video is also exciting, but nothing is real until Nintendo makes it real, right? I say that every time with these, so let's get excited at the possibilities and what seems to maybe be happening, but let's not get too invested that we get upset if it doesn't happen. Maybe, worst case scenario, we just have to wait 5 more weeks until E3 happens. And that's not a bad worst case scenario. It's just over a month away. So we either get something in May or we don't, but just 5 weeks from now, we get E3, and I think it's going to be a banger. So these are my thoughts and opinions on what seems to be going on right now. It's all very interesting. It's potentially very exciting. I am really hoping we get some sort of big presentation or news or update from Nintendo in May to prepare us for E3. It's going to be a great E3. I love that Nintendo's there. I love that Microsoft is there, Ubisoft, Konami, Capcom. I mean, I really think it's going to be a solid show. Totally okay with the all-digital thing. And so it's just a wonderful time, man. We had a rough year last year in terms of gaming. You know, we're not going to talk too much of the serious stuff because of the pandemic, but because of the weirdness of the industry as a result of that, in the gaming space, we had a tough time of it last year, I would say, right? So it's nice to be excited about some really cool potential stuff with E3 coming back and Nintendo seeming to be making big moves this year. It's a great thing. So this is what I think. What do you guys think? Discuss it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.